Well, let's start off with our very interesting segment on a Monday morning. By the way, it's just myself and Binga this morning. Olive will be joining us later on. Of course, you know that at times we do take some time off because the body truly needs to resuscitate itself. And that's exactly why you would find both of us here. But we know wherever you are, you're watching. Good morning to you, Olive, as well. And good morning to our team, you could say, our very loyal viewers on YouTube. We're streaming live. So go on YouTube, drop a comment or two, and you can also watch us live on Facebook, we're on X, and don't forget on other socials as well. Let's start off with Wake Up Conversations, which I can say it's a rather tough one because Nigerians did react to this story when it started, and now guess who's reacting? The international community. Well, the United States Congress has slammed Nigeria's federal government over a $9 million lobbying deal in Washington. Now, this took place during a joint hearing of the House Subcommittee on Africa and the Subcommittee on the Western Hemisphere. U.S. lawmakers raised concerns that this lobbying contract was designed to downplay Nigeria's human rights and religious freedom violations. In December, Nigeria reportedly hired a U.S. lobbying firm, DCI Group, on a $9 million contract. When this story came out, the federal government kept mum and said nothing up until date. Now, the aim for hiring DCI, a lobbying firm, why? The reason? To communicate Nigeria's efforts on religious freedom to the U.S. government, they said. While others say another reason is because to find a way to keep the slate clean so that the stories that are coming out of Nigeria will not in any way filter across the international community. But lawmakers like Congressman Chris Smith wasn't buying it. He described Nigeria as a killing field of defenseless Christians and said the lobbying deal reflects a culture of denial. And it wasn't just him, as former U.S. Ambassador at Large for International Religious Freedom, Sam Brownback, and Dr. Stephen Schneck, former chair of the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom, testified that Nigeria's lobbying efforts looked more like an attempt to gloss over serious abuses. Well, let's start off the show this morning by looking at these very strong statements. Take a look.
And it has made 1988, and it has made a major difference globally, including now in Nigeria. We can't take our eyes off of that. I just want to say to my colleagues, to all of us, I'm deeply concerned that Nigeria has hired the K Street lobbying firm, DCI, to the tune of $9 million, $750,000 a month. And a Nigerian billionaire, has entered into a $120,000 a month contract with Valcor to influence Congress and the executive branch. And Ambassador, you know as well as I over these many years, because you have fought this fight. They hire these firms, they come up with their very well-written talking points to say, nothing to see here. You know, whether it be Haiti, China does it better than anyone else, or worse really is what it is. We saw it with Romania. I remember during the years of Nicholas Ceausescu, and I led the effort on that along with Frank and you, Sam, Mr. Ambassador. And they always had these lobbying firms that said, Ceausescu's a good guy. He has all these churches that he has opened. He was torturing Christians. And the book that got me into religious freedom myself was Torture to Christ by Richard Wurmbrand, who talked about the duplicity and unfortunately, how these firms are just so good at advocating for their client. Well, advocate for freedom and end to religious persecution. I have many other things I'd say, but I want to cut it off here. And I do want to thank, again, all of you for being here. I'd like to yield to my good friend, Ranking Member Jacobs, for any comments you might have. Growing trend all over the world, including in the United States, but especially in the Middle East. It's been there for a long time. That has gotten worse. Hamas is the quintessential example of that hatred for Jews and for Christians. And then you have a situation like in Nigeria, where more Christians have been killed there than anywhere else in the world. And you have a government in Nigeria that practices denial, a culture of denial. No, nothing to see here. They even hired DCI, a big firm here in D.C.
The First Lady was here. She was here this week, and in fact, they wanted to come on the program to talk about religious freedom. And I said, I'm not going to give them. I'll meet with them. I'm happy to meet with anybody.
Same here.
But I'm not going to give them a platform to cover up what they're doing in Nigeria.
And that's just what it is, a massive cover-up. You know, I met with a big delegation that came in, and it went for almost 2 hours. And the Attorney General of Nigeria said that this Bishop Anabe, who I had at 2 of my hearings, you were there.
He testified right next to me.
Right next to you. A wonderful man. He said, oh, he's a liar. And I said, whoa, stop that, you know. And then they always do the thing, well, my wife's a Christian, or I'm a Christian, and my husband, you know, it's like, don't tell me that. What is happening as churches are being firebombed, people are being killed in cold blood, you know, abductions, which is very, very big there in Nigeria, of Christians especially, but others, but especially Christians. And there's this assault on faith that has gotten worse. Obama did nothing. You know, Boko Haram flourished under his 8 years in office, and now
it was your persistent advocacy that actually eventually got them labeled as a terrorist organization.
Yes. For 3 years we tried, Tony, and I had hearings on it. We had people give very, very compelling testimony as to what Boko Haram was doing, and finally, on the day we were marking up my bill to tell the administration you have to declare them a FTO, foreign terrorist organization, that day, that hour, basically, they said, oh, they're an FTO.
Yeah.
And it was like 3 years ago, we could have been working to find out where their sources of funding and weapons.
Before they kidnapped many of the girls.
That's right, the Chibok girls and many of the others were all.
What a sad tale, Binga.
Yes, very, very sad. I mean, Nigeria's issues have become a national topic of debate in the United States of America. You heard it there, Congressman Smith, talking about the federal government, the Nigerians, and the persecution of Christians, as it calls it, in Nigeria. I mean, I'm very divided on this, and I know some of my opinion might be misconstrued as controversial, but it's not controversial. The sanctity of human life is what we should hold as number one. So regardless of what religious affiliation you belong to, no Nigerian should be killed in the manner in which we saw in Kwara last week and in the killings we have been seeing since. But framing it as a Christian genocide, as, you know, one side, I mean, where does that leave the Muslims who've been an overwhelming, who have felt the overwhelming impact of terrorism? Just last week in Kwara State, the vast majority of those who were killed were Muslims. Nobody's saying anything about it. And I don't like this sort of divisive rhetoric. We should look beyond the religion and address terrorism for what it is. If the Nigerian government has dealt decisively with the issue of security and not playing politics and lip service to it, the United States won't be in this situation in the first place. So we should unite as Nigerians, regardless of tribal, political, and religious affiliations, and say no to terrorism and deal with it decisively. And there should be, I mean, the terrorists should face the full wrath of the law.
I mean, I appreciate the fact that you've broken down that it's not just Christians, and we all agree that it's not just Christians who are being murdered. You also have Muslims, and then you have people who do not belong to a particular religion, and they're all murdered, and that's a sad story, whether we like it or not. But regardless, I think there are a few truths that we need to pick out this morning, and I always say this. Many people sometimes, when we come on this show and we talk, people ask questions. Okay, fine. Why is this? Why is that? We're journalists, first of all. You need to understand that. And one thing that people need to understand as well is that journalism has transformed in the past few years, where people look forward to journalists to actually tell the truth. And I am worried. Why am I worried? Ever since the United States president had put out that statement of Nigeria being a country of particular concern, the president has not addressed Nigeria.
Absolutely.
The number one citizen has not addressed Nigerians.
Even after the Christmas bomb ensued.
Has still not addressed Nigerians. So when you leave a lacuna, a vacuum, that you have not decided to handle, it is your country, you handle it, it's your house. You're now leaving it for strangers to tell people how it's going. Now that's one.
You're not owning the narrative. Very important point. Yes.
Now two, instead of owning the narrative, Benga, this is where I have a problem. The administration goes ahead to pay someone $9 million.
You are letting the money do the talking. And it smacks of guilt. Because if you're doing, you have a foreign ministry, you have communications team, you have
get what I'm
Ministry
saying?
of Communication. Why do you need to pay lobbying?
And this is an indictment to the federal government because they have not come out to deny it. Rather, what we saw was an individual who showed his face last week all through the newspapers and in the news that he has decided to pay for a lobbying
group.
So since
to
when
influence the executive?
Exactly.
So they're doing the government favors.
Can you see how the story is changing? But what we heard was,
and that's where the congressman is saying that when you pay all these lobbies, it means it's a cover-up.
That's it.
That's the message it's sending.
Now so there was no individual attached to it. Now you now have an individual who has come out to say, I am the one who is paying. I want them. First of all, should the federal government allow a business mogul or a businessman to speak for 230 million Nigerians? It means, are you trying to tell me that those in the Senate, in the House of Representatives, and those in the federal government and its cabinet cannot in any way speak?
Very important point.
These are key questions on the Monday morning.
It's almost like you're doing giveaway for Nigeria.
These are key questions on the Monday morning. Where are the SSAs who are busy talking on social media but have failed to address this issue or have come out to say, oh yes, the businessman is speaking for us? Since when did a businessman turn a spokesperson to pay for a lobbyist to clean up Nigeria? Now that's question number 2. If we add that to what you've highlighted, which is number 1, very key. The next one is Tony Perkins, who is a news anchor, a broadcast anchor on Washington Watch, said it there openly on that video that the First Lady of the Federal Republic of Nigeria was being pushed to come on a show and speak about the Christian genocide and narrative, that he denied them of doing that so that they will not use his show
as a platform
to change the narrative. In other words, tell lies. Bingo.
I mean, it's unfortunate the level we have gotten to. But before we head into what Nigerians are saying, I would just like to say this, that the big elephant in the room is the United States of America. They should also do some introspection. The United States is always quick to, they have this foreign country of particular concern. They would label you foreign designated terrorist and all of that. But the United States, they claim to be a Christian country. They should look inwards and see if their actions internationally have been of Christian value. Just right now, the United States is trying to strangle the nation of Cuba. They've been undergoing a blockade for many years. No oil, because of the sanctions, no food, no medicine. Cubans are almost on the brink of starvation. Remember what the United States did a few weeks ago, went into Venezuela, stole their oil, kidnapped their president in broad daylight. And also, we've seen the conduct of the United States since the Second World War, and how they've just been engineering regime change and going around the world doing what they like. And the biggest elephant in the room is the United States is sponsoring a genocide in Gaza. Some of the most historical churches, the holiest places have been bombed, and they're not saying anything about that. So I don't think the United States regardless of the flaws of the Nigerian government, has the moral authority to lecture any country on human rights. Yes.
For me, the biggest elephant in the room is Nigeria.
Yes.
It is not the United States. And I'm going to say it's Nigeria, and
Nigeria,
I will argue
the
this
Nigerian government needs to deal with our situation. But
I'm coming.
Yeah.
If you don't take care of your house, you're a family man. Come on.
You give room for others to
why
speak
would I allow
about your
Benga
business?
to come to my house and be telling me your house, your kitchen is dirty, and be going in public and saying,
you're right. It's the way,
I will sit down and I'll be looking at Benga and I will not say anything.
That's just an aside.
Come on.
That's an aside.
Listen. Africa, whether we like it or not, for so long, whether we talk about neocolonialism, whether we talk about the aspect of ensuring that we guard our own, we have the resources, we have everything. How long are we going to continue in this manner? I mean, I always say this. See, this morning, whether we like it or not, why would you allow an individual come out in the open and say, yes, I paid a lobbyist, yes, to talk about, for many, they agree that that's a charade. It's not the individual, but you have to change the narrative. Why are you wasting time? we're sitting down here. America is the biggest elephant in the room. Oh yeah, as your president addressed Nigerians, has he spoken to them?
No, I'm just saying that the conduct of the United States, they are not holier than thou.
But because we've allowed it to go
I agree with you.
And this
100%.
has been policies. But anyway, let's see what Nigerians are saying. We have many more stories to look into. Let's see what Nigerians are saying, basically. Shafiu Ibrahim says, engaged in purposeful lobbying, focused on dialogue, relationship building, and laying the groundwork for understanding without attaching it to any immediate outcome or conclusion. Paying such an amount to a firm in the US doesn't make any sense. This is Nigeria for us. That's what Shafi Ibrahim says. Let's see, we'll have another tweet very quickly, and let's take that, see what Nigerians are saying as well. Adnan Abdullahi Adam says, we're being scammed in this country. They paid $9 million of Nigeria's taxpayers' money because they want Donald Trump to mention Remi, the Tinubu's wife in Washington. For God's sake, what kind of leaders do we have in Nigeria? You know, let's see another one. This one is from Scored. We may admire USA rhetoric, but Nigerians must stop believing outsiders care how we survive or grow. For them, it is debate and more debates, little action. No one is coming to save Nigerians. We must do the hard work ourselves. The West talks, interest first, resources limited. Nigerians wake up now and act together. It says Nigerians wake up now and act together. This sums up the kind of government we now have. The entire thinking of this administration is throw money at the problem government and more money if the first money fails. But where will that money come from? Taxpayers and resources? That's from Timi Olagunji. If public funds are truly being spent on foreign lobbying while citizens face economic pressure at home, then transparency is not optional. Nigerians deserve clear explanations on priority, spending, and measurable benefits to the country, not silence. And that's what Alaji Bayo Chibuzo says. I mean, Mink, I don't know if you have any other thing you want to add.
very, very salient points and straight to the point. At the end of the day, we need to look inwards, and Nigeria is ours. No country is going to like Nigeria more than Nigerians. So let's come together and do what we need to do to move the country forward. Yes. But let's look into our second wake-up conversation today. Former Senate President and National Chairman of the African Democratic Congress, Senator David Mark, has pushed back strongly against comments by Senate President Godswill Akpabio on the ongoing amendment of the Electoral Act, insisting that the ADC's position is clear and non-negotiable. The exchange occurred at the public presentation of the burden of legislators in Nigeria, held at the Nigerian Air Force Conference Center in Abuja, where Mark chaired the occasion. During his address, Akpabio urged the ADC and other critics of the amendment process not to be in a hurry, stressing that the Senate was yet to conclude work on the Electoral Act amendment. He argued that calls for real-time electronic transmission of election results failed to take into account Nigeria's infrastructure challenges, citing lack of electricity and internet in many rural communities. According to him, allowing such a provision in the law could negatively affect electoral outcomes. However, responding pointedly, Mark said the Senate President could not speak on behalf of the ADC, adding that the party's demand and that of many Nigerians was straightforward. Let's take a listen.
Democracy breathes through such interrogation. But I don't think citizens are free to abuse the legislature. I give you an example. There is a man who heads one NGO, or a CSO. He was on television the other day. He was abusing the current Nigerian Senate that he makes money from. And he said that the Senate is the worst since the world was founded. And he's judging us by something that is incoherent. Electoral Act amendment that is incompleted. We have not completed it, but they are already on television. You see all sort of panels. Because they don't understand lawmaking. They don't even know that even the one in the Senate is not completed until we look at the votes and proceedings. So, when we bring out the votes and proceedings, any senator has a right to rise up and say on clause 3, this was what we agreed upon. And if those who are recording through the verbatim recorder disagree or agree, we amend it before we approve the votes and proceedings. That is the only time you can now talk about what the Senate has done or what the Senate has not done. But already people are on television abusing the Senate, talking about the Senate, even when what we did has not yet been approved by the same Senate. It's incomplete.
Your Excellency, my brother and friend, a very distinguished senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, who is the president of the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Godswill Akpabio. My friend and brother, the executive governor of Akwa Ibom State, the author of the book and his dear wife, that there should be electronic transmission. Let INEC decide whether they can do or they cannot do it. Don't speak for INEC, just speak for the National Assembly. And what the public wants is, let there be electronic transmission. Now, if INEC cannot do it, it is in their own problem. That's their own problem. Not for you to speak for INEC. It's as simple as that. But that's just a by the way issue. It's not a serious issue, which we have raised. It's a by the way, it's a tangential issue to
the points former Senate President David Mark was making. But interesting discussion and dialogue, and this is the beauty of democracy. And one thing, one of the takeaways for me is that our leaders do listen, and the power of the media. They do watch the news, they read newspapers, and they also feel the pulse of Nigerians. And I must say, kudos to Nigerian activists for, taking the gauntlet and reacting to this issue. Sometimes I heard the Senate President there saying, oh, it's still in consideration, they haven't even decided. But the idea that you might even want to toy with this is what led to a lot of agitation, and CSOs and NGOs and Nigerians speaking strongly against this issue. And I think, this is how many years of our uninterrupted democratic experience. The excuse of electricity and internet, the Starlink is not, and even the engineers that INEC has also, the engineers that INEC has hired, and I'm sure many engineers and Nigerian Telecommunications Group, there's this that do towers, will tell you that it's doable. Real-time transmission of results is doable.
Benga, here we come again. Well, when I saw it was at the book, by the way, that was a book launch over the weekend of Senator F. Young Bob, who launched a book on the legislature, and that brought together, of course, former Senate President and Brigadier General David Mark, who was also a senator for his state then. And then, of course, the current Senate President, the governor, everybody was seated. I loved the dialogue. The Senate President, although raised some issues, and one of the issues that Nigerians must take home this morning as you start your week is that, let's use the President's statement, Efarabale,
just relax. Yeah, everything's in control.
Yes. The Senate President says they have not concluded yet. But Nigerians are already protesting. On the other hand, we need to remind the Senate President that Nigerians have the right to protest.
Absolutely.
When they've seen the level at which the Senate has acted, especially in issues that they should really act and are expected to act. We're not going to mention those issues. So Nigerians are proactive. Because of that proactiveness, the Senate has called tomorrow. They fixed the date tomorrow to all meet and discuss the electoral reforms incisively. That's the note. That's the letter.
That should be a very heated and decisive plenary sitting.
Yes. Venue, Senate chamber. They decided to sit down, and those are emergency plenary sitting of the Senate. They want to sit down and discuss it. And I think it's very key. What is the issue? Mandatory transmission, mandatory electronic transmission of results, mandatory, so that there will be no room for, because it wasn't working. Now let's
or subject to INEC's interpretation.
Exactly. Let's come down to the argument of the Senate President said why they said that is because there are no networks in 9 states. I was waiting to see a detailed press release of those 9 states. And trust me, Nigerians who are ready will tell you if there are no network or no network there. But also bear in mind, Benga, that if you do not pay your tax, whether you are in Zamfara, whether you are in Gombe,
whether there's no network, they will get to you.
They will get to you. In short, when you buy a recharge card, you load your phone, data will enter. So there's always a way around these things. The NLC has called for a protest. All the political parties, the PDP, the SDP, coincidentally, the Labour Party, well, not the defunct, group of the Labour Party, but the Nadadi Usman-led Labour Party. Everyone is talking and saying, come, you cannot choose for over 220 million Nigerians. They put you there. Listen, when they say we don't want, you come back. That's what democracy is. You sit back and look at it and say, okay, what can we do to make it work?
Because they are representatives of the people put them there. But let's go ahead and see what Nigerians are saying about this issue. Of course, he says INEC has a capacity. They already tried with the National Assembly elections. Okay. Interesting. Omotayo Lawson says, do both of them look like they care? Both are laughing at the foolishness of the masses. That's Omotayo's interpretation of that video. Oloda Equiano says, until he strikes you down, stop mixing his holy name with your corrupted politics. Don't know what he's referring to there. Okay, let's take another tweet, please. Okay, those are just a few excerpts of what Nigerians are saying.
Get more tweets
but
out.
Tomorrow is Tuesday. I mean, absolute important day in Nigeria's history, where the Senate will have an emergency meeting to decide on this issue of mandatory electronic transmission of election results. So all eyes will be on the National Assembly complex tomorrow, and trust News Central to be there in person to give you detailed coverage of what will be happening there.
That's right. Anyway, that's all we have for you here on Wake Up Conversations. We do have a lot to talk about on a Monday morning. If you just tuned in, welcome to your morning dose of breakfast. Welcome to Breakfast Central. And let's bring to you what our top stories look like today on a Monday morning.